The stale stench of desperation clung to the war command like mold to a forgotten cellar. Burnt coffee, ozone from overworked electronics, and the faint metallic scent of blood mixed in the recycled air. Commander Nathan Rourke stood rigid before the flickering holographic display at the center of the room. It cast a cold glow on his dust-streaked face, its projection showing Earth's remaining defense units, blue dots, barely a dozen now, drowning in an ocean of red. The red represented the Zerati fleet. And it was everywhere. Behind Nathan, hushed voices muttered like ghosts, officers exchanging status reports in tones stripped of hope. General Maddox moved beside him, his old combat boots scuffing the scorched floor. He carried a data crystal between calloused fingers and wore the look of a man who'd already buried everyone he knew. "They've requested formal surrender," the general said quietly, as though the war room itself might shatter under the weight of the words. Nathan didn't respond right away. His jaw was clenched, dark hair matted with sweat and concrete dust from the last bombing. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days, not since the 7th Fleet, Earth's last major defense line, was erased in a flash of wind and fire over the Atlantic. "They want a public representative," Maddox continued. "Someone to finalize terms. Someone they can parade." Nathan turned slowly. "They don't want negotiations," he said, his voice hoarse but firm. "They want a human to kneel." The general nodded once. "And you're it." Nathan stared at the general for a long moment, blinking slowly as the weight of the assignment settled over him like lead. "Why me?" he asked. "There are others, diplomats, politicians, hell, celebrities who'd do anything to survive." Maddox didn't look away. "Because you're the only one left who knows how to speak their language without sounding like we've already lost. You served in the diplomatic corps before the war, remember? And you're still breathing after 3 months of atmospheric sieges." "Barely," Nathan muttered, rubbing at the bruise that lined his ribs. "The last envoy you sent never made it off the landing ramp." "This won't be the same," Maddox said. "We're not sending a negotiator. We're sending a symbol." Nathan exhaled slowly. "A symbol that knows we've lost, but can still salvage something," the general countered. He stepped forward, placing the data crystal into Nathan's hand. It was warm from his grip. "This holds the encryption key for Earth's last defense systems. You use it only if there's a chance, any chance, to gain better terms. Or to make them think we've got something left in the chamber." Nathan looked down at the metal shard. It was nothing to the Zerati, he was sure. But it was everything Earth had left. "Do you even believe there's a deal to be made?" Nathan asked. Maddox's voice turned rough. "I don't believe in surrender. But I believe in dignity. You carry that with you, son. Even if it's all we've got left." A voice over the intercom cut through the silence. "Shuttle Bravo 1 is prepped for launch. Diplomatic escort boarding now." Nathan pocketed the data crystal, drew a long breath, and turned to leave. Before he could take a step, Maddox's hand fell on his shoulder, firm, paternal. 30 minutes until launch," he said quietly. "You're not just representing Earth. You're its last voice." Nathan nodded once, then walked out of the command room, each step echoing louder than the last. The shuttle bay was quieter than it should have been. No engineers shouted last-minute orders. No air traffic buzzed overhead. Just the low hum of the diplomatic transport, a silver-gray arrow perched delicately on the scorched landing pad. A soldier, one of the few remaining, saluted as Nathan approached, but there was no ceremony. No speeches. Nathan climbed the ramp without a word, slinging the emergency satchel over his shoulder. Inside were only the barest essentials: field rations, a water purifier, 2 data pads, and a small alloy case housing Earth's final bargaining chip. He took his seat by the viewport as the shuttle doors sealed shut. The pilot gave him a brief nod before returning her focus to the controls. She didn't speak either. No one did anymore, not unless necessary. As the engines fired up and the platform beneath them began to sink into the launch cradle, Nathan allowed himself one final glance at the hangar wall. Scrawled in white chalk across the far corner was a phrase: if you're reading this, we're still alive." He wasn't sure he believed it. The shuttle launched with a rumble that shook his bones. The climb through Earth's atmosphere was turbulent. Scattered atmospheric interference from Zerati disruptors made every ascent a risk, but the ship held. Once they broke through the cloud line, Nathan's breath caught in his throat. The Zerati flagship loomed above the planet like a silent god, miles wide, bristling with spires and tendrils that pulsed faintly with atmospheric energy. Lightning rippled across its surface, threading between structures like veins. The shuttle angled toward it, guided by a docking signal. Nathan had seen the specks before, glimpsed reconnaissance images, but nothing compared to the reality. It wasn't a ship. It was a cathedral. A weaponized cathedral. As they approached the docking port, Nathan checked his uniform, Earth's last intact diplomatic set. The right sleeve still bore the singed fabric from a rescue mission in Berlin, and the collar had been sewn back together with thread barely matching. But it was a symbol. A uniform meant something. The shuttle docked with a barely audible click. Smooth. Deliberate. Nathan stood, squared his shoulders, and prepared himself. No fear. No weakness. When the doors slid open with a hiss, he was greeted not by guards or a translator, but by her. And everything changed. Commander Althea of the Zerati Dominion stood in the corridor beyond the airlock like she had been sculpted from starlight and thunder. She was taller than any human Nathan had met, at least 7 feet, not counting the 2 swept-back horns that emerged from her temples like polished obsidian. Her wings were partly spread, each feather gleaming with layered hues of deep black and searing gold, as though dipped in sunlight and shadow. Her skin shimmered faintly, a silver-blue iridescence that shifted with her movements. Her facial features were sharp and regal, high cheekbones, angled brows, and long ears that tapered to points. But it was her eyes that rooted Nathan to the spot. They glowed like molten metal, brilliant gold, slitted vertically like a predator's. And they studied him not with malice, but with a cold, intellectual curiosity. As though he were a specimen, a data set, an anomaly. "So," she said, her voice resonating not only through the air but through his chest. "The human diplomat arrives." Her Zerati accent was refined, but her words carried the undertone of a storm held back by sheer will. Nathan took 1 step forward, spine straight. "Commander Nathan Rourke. Representing the United Earth Government." Althea tilted her head slightly. "No bow?" "On Earth," Nathan replied. "Diplomatic equals meet on level ground." A current of air swept over him, cool at first, then tightening around his chest like invisible hands. He knew what it was. A test. She was using her atmospheric abilities, trying to force him to yield. His lungs strained under the growing pressure, but he kept his gaze locked with hers. He didn't flinch. He didn't kneel. "I was told your kind is clever," she murmured, taking a single step closer. "But rarely so bold." "You wanted a representative," he said through clenched teeth. "You got one." Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure vanished. The air rushed back into his lungs with a gasp, and Nathan staggered only a little, refusing to fall to one knee. Behind Althea, 2 guards stood motionless. One carried a polearm-like weapon crackling faintly with blue energy. The other held a rectangular device that seemed to hum with elemental power. A third figure, older and robed in deep violet, stood at the rear. His wings were streaked with silver, and his staff bore symbols etched in some ancient dialect. He studied Nathan not like a soldier, but like a scholar measuring destiny. Althea's lip twitched, almost a smirk. "Elder Kalen believes we should offer you quarters for recovery. You've survived your arrival, after all. We wouldn't want you to expire before we begin." Nathan coughed once, but lifted his chin. "I'm fine." "Good," she said. "Because tomorrow, we begin discussing the terms of your species' surrender." "I wasn't sent to surrender," he countered. The guards exchanged glances, and for a moment, even the robed elder paused. Althea's golden eyes narrowed with interest. "Then this will be more entertaining than I expected." She turned, her wings folding with fluid grace. Follow me, Commander Rourke. Let's see if you walk as proudly as you talk. And with that, Nathan followed the storm deeper into its eye. The corridors of the Zerati flagship were unlike anything Nathan had ever seen. Living metal that pulsed faintly beneath his boots, walls that curved like carved wind tunnels, glowing veins of light embedded in the floor to guide their path. It felt less like walking through a warship and more like drifting through the inside of a storm that had been frozen in time. Althea moved ahead of him with smooth, predatory grace. Her wings remained tucked against her back, yet they still seemed to command the space around her. Nathan could feel each subtle shift in air pressure with every step she took, like walking behind a lion that knew it had no equal. I expected a human envoy to be more compliant, she said, her voice drifting back over her shoulder. Nathan kept pace. And I expected an alien warlord to be more subtle. A faint hum of amusement escaped her throat, low and dangerous. Careful, Commander. If I find you amusing, I might keep you around longer. Is that a threat or a compliment? On my ship, it's both. They passed several Zerati crew along the way, tall, winged figures in sleek armor who stopped what they were doing to observe the strange human walking confidently in the wake of their commander. Most stared in cold curiosity. A few narrowed their eyes, clearly disapproving. No one spoke. At last, they reached a chamber set into the wall of a wide, ring-like corridor. Its entrance hissed open at Althea's gesture, revealing a room prepared for a bipedal life form, albeit awkwardly. A low bed. A table. Nutrient packs clearly not designed for human consumption. The walls were translucent, revealing the swirling atmospheric currents just outside the vessel's hull. It was like looking out into a storm cloud frozen in orbit. This is where you'll stay, Althea said, turning to face him again. You'll find the air breathable, the temperature tolerable, and the privacy limited. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Limited? She stepped into his space, closer than protocol dictated, her voice dropping to a near whisper. This is a warship, not a hotel. Every breath you take is monitored. Every movement tracked. I assumed as much, he said. Trust isn't built in a day. No, she agreed. But broken in an instant. For a moment they stood there, alien commander and human diplomat, separated by worlds, joined by purpose, and drawn into a dangerous dance neither quite understood. She turned at last, wings brushing the edge of the doorway as she left. Rest if you can. Tomorrow, we test the limits of your resolve. The door slid shut behind her. And Nathan was alone in the belly of the storm. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed, elbows resting on his knees, staring at the slow dance of atmospheric energy beyond the translucent walls. The storm outside the ship, if that's what it even was, seemed both natural and artificial. Controlled chaos, like the woman who commanded it. He let out a slow breath and unclipped the satchel from his belt. Inside, the encrypted data crystal gleamed faintly, its surface humming with latent code. Earth's last card. He carefully returned it to the lining pocket. It wasn't time for that yet. A soft chime broke the silence. The door hissed open to reveal the elder figure he had seen earlier, Kalen, if he remembered correctly. The robed Zerati stepped into the room without asking permission, the flowing fabric of his cloak whispering with each movement. You rest without sleep, the elder observed. I've never been good at relaxing on enemy ships. I do not believe you are here as an enemy, Kalen replied. But not yet a guest either. Nathan stood. What are you, exactly? Advisor? Priest? Kalen's eyes, faded gold compared to Althea's molten brilliance, glimmered. I am keeper of the wind record. Guardian of what was, and watcher of what may yet be. So, a historian? In your tongue, perhaps. But our history is not inked on pages. It is sung by the wind, and remembered in pressure and change. Nathan gave a humorless smile. That sounds poetic. But I'm here for practical things. Survival. Terms. Peace, if that's even possible. The elder approached slowly. You believe it is not? I think peace depends on more than just what happens in this room, Nathan replied. There are people on both sides who want this war to continue. For power. For revenge. Kalen inclined his head slightly. True. But sometimes, a single current shifts the course of the storm. He studied Nathan with unsettling focus. You resisted her pressure. Nathan didn't pretend to misunderstand. Barely. No, Kalen said. You did not kneel. That matters. Nathan crossed his arms. You think I'm part of some prophecy, don't you? A pause. There are writings. Songs older than our fleet. They speak of one who does not break beneath the sky's weight. Who stands in the center of the storm and still breathes. Nathan's stomach turned. And you think that's me? We do not know, Kalen said. But Commander Althea has already felt the winds shift around you. She is not easily stirred. She's a commander, Nathan said, more to himself than to Kalen. I'm just a symbol. Symbols, Commander Rourke, shape empires. Without another word, Kalen turned and left the room, the door whispering shut behind him. Nathan sat back down on the edge of the bed, jaw tight, mind racing. Tomorrow, the negotiations would begin. And suddenly, he wasn't sure of who the storm was anymore. Artificial sunlight spilled across the chamber's curved floor as Nathan entered the Zerati negotiation room for the first time. The air here was subtly different, pressurized in a way that made each breath feel slightly heavier, like walking into the calm eye of a great storm. A psychological tactic, no doubt. The chamber itself was vast and circular, with a wide black table at its center made from some glossy stone-like material that reflected light unevenly, like a ripple frozen in time. Intricate lines of gold inlay twisted through it in spirals, evoking both elegance and authority. At the far end stood Althea. Her wings were partially extended, less a threat and more a display of presence, dominance layered in poise. She did not sit. She stood as though the winds themselves held her aloft. Flanking her were 3 Zerati officials. Nathan recognized one immediately from the intel files, Vyrek. Black-winged, crimson-eyed, and already glaring at Nathan as if his presence alone desecrated the room. The others were older, less overtly hostile but no more welcoming. Althea didn't move as Nathan approached the table. You survived the night, she said. Many expected you to request evacuation. Or break. I sleep better under pressure, Nathan replied, taking the seat provided without waiting to be invited. Now, let's discuss terms. A flicker of amusement touched the corner of her lips, gone before it could be confirmed. You misunderstand, Commander. We are not here to draft agreements. You are here to accept your species' surrender. Nathan kept his voice calm. Then allow me to clarify Earth's position. We are willing to cooperate. To trade. To adapt. But not to kneel. Vyrek scoffed. You have nothing to offer us except your atmosphere. We could strip it in days, then move on. You could, Nathan said. But you'd lose something valuable in the process. Such as? Althea asked, her golden eyes sharpening. Our culture. Innovation. Resilience, Nathan replied. We've survived global wars, ecological collapse, self-inflicted wounds your people have never faced. And we're still here. Vyrek leaned forward, sneering. You speak as if we should learn from you, when we've already broken your world. Nathan's gaze didn't waver. And I'm still sitting here. The room grew still. Then Althea lifted one hand. The air thickened again, pressure growing swiftly. Nathan recognized the sensation from their first meeting, only this time, stronger. Invisible weight pressed against his chest, lifting him slightly from his chair. Pain surged through his ribs, breath constricted. He gritted his teeth and stared straight into her eyes. You presume to teach us wisdom while suspended helplessly? She asked, her voice calm but edged with challenge. If I wasn't making sense, Nathan gasped, you wouldn't need to silence me. The pressure vanished. He dropped back into his seat, caught himself before he could slump. His heart pounded, his lungs burned, but he didn't look away. Althea studied him in silence. Then finally said, Interesting. and the negotiations began in earnest. For over an hour, the air within the negotiation chamber thickened with tension more than pressure. Nathan outlined Earth's proposal: conditional autonomy under Zerati oversight. A protectorate arrangement, not total conquest. Earth would open its infrastructure, share knowledge, and provide access to atmospheric research and biotechnological innovation in exchange for freedom from further occupation or resource stripping. To Nathan's surprise, Althea listened. Vyrek, however, did not. Outrageous! The Dark-Winged commander snarled after a particularly bold clause was read aloud. You think we'll leave your city standing, let your species keep its governance after you burned our soldiers with your last atmospheric disruptors? Nathan responded calmly. We're offering cooperation. You gain more in the long run with a functioning Earth than a scorched one. Vyrek bared his teeth. You've already destroyed half your cities yourselves. And yet we're still here. Nathan replied evenly. If you want loyalty, try trust. Fear only breeds resistance. Althea held up a hand, silencing the room. Her gaze moved from Nathan to her own advisors, lingering on Vyrek before she spoke. I want to speak with the human alone. The silence that followed was almost tangible. The other officials exchanged glances, clearly displeased. Even Vyrek paused, but ultimately he nodded and withdrew, though not before giving Nathan a look that promised this discussion wasn't over. Once they were alone, Althea stepped away from the table and circled slowly, the feathered edges of her wings brushing the chamber's curved walls. You speak well, she said. Almost too well. You negotiate like someone who believes they can still win. Nathan stood from his seat. I don't care about winning. I care about surviving. And preserving what can be rebuilt. Your proposal assumes we value your species' continuation. If you didn't, I wouldn't be here. She stopped, standing just an arm's length from him now. Perhaps I simply enjoy watching you struggle. Nathan didn't blink. Then you've misread me. I'm not struggling. I'm offering you something rare, an honest enemy-turned-ally. For a moment, Althea didn't respond. Her wings settled slightly. Her gaze flicked to his jaw, his eyes, his stance. Then her hand rose, not touching him, but hovering just over his cheek. A subtle breeze brushed his skin. Not invasive. Not threatening. Intimate. Your defiance should irritate me, she said quietly. But I find it stimulating. The heat between them shifted from political to something far more dangerous. Nathan swallowed, heart pounding in his chest now for very different reasons. Commander Althea, he said carefully. Her golden eyes met his. When we're alone, you may call me Althea. They stood in that quiet storm a moment longer, until she stepped back, her voice resuming its commander's edge. Tomorrow, we continue. Prepare your revised proposals. And consider what else you're willing to offer. She turned toward the door, her voice softer as she left. I can be generous to those who impress me, and merciless to those who don't. The door hissed shut. And Nathan was left wondering what kind of storm he'd just walked into. Nathan couldn't sleep that night. The air in his quarters felt too still, like the calm before a second storm. He paced slowly, thinking over every word Althea had said, every glance, every subtle shift in her body language. Something had changed, between them, in the negotiations, in the power dynamic. And he wasn't sure yet whether it was to Earth's benefit, or its undoing. After a few hours of restless silence, he stepped out to walk the ship's allowed corridors, acting as though he were merely stretching his legs. In truth, he wanted to observe. Learn. Listen. The Zerati warship was a marvel of alien ingenuity. The floors resonated slightly with pressure shifts, as if they breathed. Even the walls pulsed gently, adjusting atmospheric density depending on who walked through them. The architecture was alive with purpose. As Nathan turned down one corridor, he heard faint voices echoing from a recessed alcove. He slowed, moving silently to the edge of the curve. 2 Zerati officers stood there, young, by their posture and size. They spoke rapidly in their native tongue, unaware he was near. His translator implant flickered to life, parsing the unfamiliar syntax into rough approximations. "It is unprecedented," the first one whispered. "She allows him to roam freely. The prophecy speaks of one who does not bend," the second replied. "Elder Kalen has consulted the ancient texts twice since the human arrived. That cannot be him. The Windborn cannot bond with prey. Commander Vyrek fears it might be true. Why else would he?" They cut off suddenly. Footsteps approached from the opposite direction. Nathan ducked back just in time as another Zerati passed. The two whispering officers vanished into another corridor, leaving Nathan with a mind spinning faster than his translator. Prophecy. Windborn. Bonding. It wasn't just politics anymore. As he turned to leave, a familiar voice stopped him. "Eavesdropping, Commander?" He turned and saw her. Althea stood closer than he'd expected, wings slightly unfurled. Her expression was unreadable, but the tilt of her head and the way the air shifted between them suggested she'd been watching longer than she'd let on. "Exploring," Nathan replied coolly. "Your ship is remarkable." Her lips curved faintly. "Would you like an official tour?" That caught him off guard. "I would." Althea stepped closer, gesturing for him to follow. "Then let me show you what you came here to change." For the next hour, she guided him through the hidden wonders of the Zerati flagship, sprawling agriculture chambers where plants floated in spiraling air, atmospheric manipulation labs, meditation spires carved from crystal and air pressure alone. She explained everything with the precision of a commander and the pride of a creator. "You control the wind better than any force I've ever seen," Nathan said quietly. "We had to," she replied, her voice softening. "Our homeworld is a planet of storms. To survive, we had to master them." As they entered a viewing dome where stars glittered across an obsidian void, the ship suddenly jolted. The lights flickered. Alarms blared briefly. Althea's wings flared. "Engine fluctuation," she said tightly. "It happens, occasionally." Then the lights went out. And the gravity failed. They both drifted upward, untethered in a ship that now floated as silently as the void outside. Nathan instinctively reached for her. His hand found her arm in the dark. Her eyes, glowing faintly in the low light, locked onto his. "Don't worry," she said, her hand lifting. A soft air current spun around them, stabilizing their position. They floated there, suspended together in silence. Her wings folded around them slightly, not in defense, but in instinct. "You fear the void," she whispered. "And yet you came anyway." "We often pursue what terrifies us most," Nathan answered. She studied him closely. "What terrifies you, Nathan Rourke?" The question hung between them like a weightless blade. And before he could answer, the lights returned, and gravity reasserted itself. But something had shifted between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. As the artificial gravity eased them gently back to the floor, Nathan let go of her arms slower than he needed to. Althea's wings pulled back, folding against her back, but the warmth of her presence lingered like static. The moment of weightlessness hadn't just suspended their bodies, it had suspended something deeper. Uncertainty. Distance. Doubt. "Apologies," she said, turning toward the control panel near the viewport. "The secondary stabilizer array is overdue for recalibration." "I thought you controlled every wind aboard this ship," Nathan said, his voice softer than before. "I do," she said, glancing at him over her shoulder. "But even the strongest current can falter, if left unattended." They left the dome in silence, walking side by side. Their footsteps were the only sound now, echoing along corridors that had once felt cold and foreign but now felt quiet, almost familiar. As they neared his quarters, Althea paused. "I didn't bring you here to seduce you," she said suddenly. Nathan blinked. "I didn't think you did." She turned to him, eyes glowing faintly. "But you're wondering now what this is. Between us. Between our worlds. I think about everything," he admitted. "Especially the things that might change the course of a war." Althea looked at the floor for a moment, her hand grazing the wall. A faint current lifted her hair. Nervousness, maybe. Or hesitation. There is something I haven't said about the prophecy. Nathan stiffened. I figured it was more than ancient poetry. It speaks of a union, she said, voice barely above a whisper. One that binds the wind and the unyielding. A joining of dominance and defiance. Sounds romantic, Nathan said, but the words came out heavier than he intended. Althea stepped closer. It also says the windborn Empress, me, will only rise in full power when she unites with one who does not kneel. He exhaled sharply. So you're saying all this? He gestured vaguely between them. Might just be a step on your ladder. No, she said firmly. I'm saying I don't know. And that terrifies me more than any enemy I've faced. Nathan looked at her for a long time. The commander, the warrior, the myth. And beneath it all, the woman caught in the center of a legacy she never asked for. I didn't come here to be part of your legend, he said. I came to protect my people. Then maybe, she whispered, we want the same thing. They stood in silence once more. Then the calm near her waist buzzed. She tapped it. Althea. Kairos's voice came through, strained. Commander. You're needed. Now. Counselor Vyrek and 2 delegates have entered your chamber without permission. They're demanding to inspect the humans' quarters. They claim corruption. Althea's expression turned to ice. I'll handle it, she said. She looked back at Nathan. Stay here. And if they come to you, don't say a word. Not until I return. Then she turned and vanished into the corridor like a blade sliding back into its sheath. Nathan stood alone in the quiet once more. But this time, the air didn't feel still. It felt like it was waiting. The corridor echoed with the rhythmic beat of Althea's boots as she marched toward the central council wing, her face a mask of absolute control. But inside, her thoughts twisted in turbulent winds. Vyrek enter Nathan's quarters without clearance? That wasn't just a political breach, it was a direct insult. One that risked everything she'd worked to build since the day Earth's skies darkened with Zerati warships. She arrived at the chamber door just as it slid open. Vyrek turned slowly at the sound, 2 armored delegates at his side. He wore the smirk of a man who believed himself victorious before the battle even began. You're out of line, Althea said flatly. I am within my right to protect the Dominion, he replied, tone oily. You've compromised our mission by engaging personally with the human. The Council has a right to investigate any tampering. Althea's wings flared, though she kept her voice dangerously calm. This vessel is under my command. Any incursion into private quarters without sanction is an act of insubordination. Shall I have you detained? One of the delegates shifted nervously, but Vyrek didn't flinch. You wouldn't dare, he sneered. Because you know the Council watches you now. They see the way you look at him. They whisper about the prophecy. About your weakness. Her eyes narrowed to slits of gold. Be careful, Vyrek. You speak as if you know my thoughts. I don't need to, he said, stepping closer. Everyone sees it. Your fascination. Your hesitation. The way your wings respond when he enters a room. Althea held her ground, but something in her chest tightened. He leaned in. You think he's the one. You think if you bond with him, it will fulfill the windwritten texts and hand you the throne without challenge. Her voice dropped to a near growl. Leave. Now. Vyrek lingered just long enough to make his defiance clear. Then, slowly, he turned and led the delegates away. When they were gone, Kairos emerged from a nearby alcove. You can't ignore this anymore, he said. Vyrek will not stop. He fears the prophecy more than he fears you. Althea crossed her arms. Then let him fear. Let him make mistakes. Kairos stepped closer, his tone more personal now. The prophecy does not guarantee your rise. It only speaks of a choice. And now, the choice is no longer yours alone. She looked at him sharply. You mean Nathan? He must choose freely, Kairos said. Not under pressure. Not as a pawn. That's what the texts demand. Althea's wings folded slowly behind her. Then I pray to the winds that his choice is the right one. Back in his quarters, Nathan sat motionless. He hadn't heard the words Virex spoke, but he could feel them. Like a storm building beyond a sealed window. The door opened. Althea entered alone. No one will bother you again tonight, she said. Nathan stood. Did he search my things? No, she replied. He wanted a show of dominance. He got one. Nathan hesitated, then asked, how far will this prophecy push us before it tears everything apart? Althea didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at him, truly looked. And in that moment, Nathan saw it. Beneath the armor, beneath the command, beneath the legacy, she was tired. Worn. But still burning with purpose. Then maybe, she said finally, we need to choose who we are, before the prophecy does it for us. The next evening arrived cloaked in silence. The corridors outside Nathan's quarters had grown emptier, security tighter, whispers fewer. Even the ever-present hum of the ship's core seemed subdued, as though the vessel itself sensed the growing tension. Nathan had spent most of the day revising Earth's treaty proposals, adding contingencies, refining terms, removing anything that could be interpreted as subservience. But by nightfall, he couldn't focus. The shadows of the prophecy clung to him now, invisible yet inescapable. Virex's accusations. Kalen's cryptic reverence. Althea's eyes, so commanding in public yet vulnerable in the quiet moments between storms. The door chimed. When it opened, it was her. Althea stood without armor, without entourage. She wore a sleek ceremonial wrap of black and bronze that shimmered faintly with woven wind threads. Her wings were not extended, but relaxed, as though she'd finally allowed herself to breathe. No politics tonight, she said softly. No strategy. No prophecy. Nathan set the datapad aside and met her gaze. What then? Truth. She entered the room slowly, and for the first time, it wasn't as a commander, but as a woman caught between her legacy and her longing. She stepped close. The air around them warmed, reacting to her presence. Her wings twitched with small, unconscious movements that Nathan had learned to read as anticipation. From the moment you refused to kneel, she said, everything I believed became unstable. I didn't do it to impress you. I know, she whispered. That's what makes it real. She reached up, fingers brushing the side of his jaw, not with force, but with something gentler. Your defiance disarmed me more than any weapon could have. It's maddening. And yet, Nathan said, stepping in closer, you're still here. She didn't answer with words. Her wings shifted forward, brushing the walls. Her lips met his, soft and commanding, as her elemental abilities stirred to life. Air swirled around them, not chaotic, not violent, but alive. The kiss deepened, full of questions neither of them dared to speak. His hands found her waist, and she leaned into him as though grounding herself for the first time in days. Her armor, what little ceremonial garb she wore, fell away under eager hands. His uniform followed, shed not as surrender but as equal offering. They collapsed together onto the cushioned bench, their bodies entwined, the wind cocooning them in a shield of air that silenced the world outside. Later, wrapped in the aftermath of breath and pulse and elemental stillness, Nathan lay against her side, one hand tracing the smooth line of her arm, her silver-blue skin aglow with faint warmth. A small metallic object near the corner of the room caught his eye, her datapad, knocked loose during their frenzied intimacy. Curious, he reached for it. The screen blinked awake with a glyph glowing at its center. His translator flickered. Then rendered the passage aloud. The Windborn shall bind with the unbending, a union of resistance and command. And through their bond, the storm shall end or consume all. Nathan's blood turned to ice. Althea stirred beside him, her golden eyes fluttering open, only to lock on the screen in his hand. He sat up, staring at her. Is that what this is? A prophecy checklist? Seduce the human who refuses to bow and ascend the throne? Her face twisted with pain. Nathan, no. It's not like that. Then explain it, he said, voice low. Because from where I'm sitting, I'm starting to look like a tool. Althea rose, unashamed of her nakedness, her wings flicking outward in a rare display of vulnerability. The prophecy exists. Yes. I didn't seek you because of it. Didn't you? He snapped. You said I make you uncertain? Maybe that's just the final test. Win me over, complete the ritual, and claim your destiny. Her voice hardened, though her eyes pleaded. You think I can fake desire? That I can fabricate the way I feel when I'm near you? He said nothing. His silence was answer enough. I didn't choose to want you, she whispered. But I do. And I hate that it's tangled up with prophecy, because I don't know how to separate the two anymore. Nathan stood slowly, retrieving his uniform. Then maybe we both need to figure out what we are, before we can figure out what we're meant to be. The air between them, once warm, now chilled. And for the first time since stepping aboard the Zerati flagship, Nathan felt more lost than ever. Althea dressed in silence. Her ceremonial robe reformed around her in smooth layers of woven fibers, fastened by kinetic clasps that shimmered faintly with power. But her face remained bare, no helmet, no war paint, no mask. She didn't speak as Nathan resecured his uniform. There was nothing left to say. Not yet. Then came the chime. The tone was harsher than usual. A priority alert. Althea moved to the panel beside the door. Her hand brushed it. Elder Kairos's voice poured through the calm, tight with urgency. Commander. Vyrek has arrived at the High Chamber. With 3 council delegates. He claims to have evidence that you are unfit to lead and is invoking emergency review. Her jaw tightened. He would do this now. He knows, Kairos said. He's exploiting the prophecy and your relationship with the human. He means to take control. Nathan stepped beside her. Then let's not give him the chance. She turned to him, wings twitching. He must not find you with me like this. Why? Because it confirms everything he's saying. Reluctantly, Nathan nodded. She touched a panel on the wall, summoning a veil of polarized light that separated the room. When the doors opened, only Althea stepped into the corridor, alone. Within minutes, she entered the council chamber, where the air was already dense with judgment. Vyrek stood at the center of the floor, flanked by 2 winged officials and the towering presence of Elder Delos, the Dominion's most senior prophecy keeper. You arrived late, Vyrek said coldly. I arrived prepared, Althea replied. Which you would know nothing about. Delos raised one pale hand. Enough. There are serious concerns regarding your judgment, Commander. Concerns that endanger the fate of this Dominion. Althea's wings flexed slightly. You speak of the prophecy. We speak of your conduct, Delos corrected. Your emotional entanglement with the human compromises your leadership. He is a representative of his people. You shared a chamber with him last night. Althea's breath caught. So Vyrek had spies. You deny it? Delos pressed. She didn't. No. A ripple of murmurs passed through the council. Vyrek's smirk deepened. Then the prophecy is corrupted, Delos said. No longer divine, but manipulated. Twisted to serve personal ambition. I didn't choose this path, she said through clenched teeth. I didn't ask for a prophecy to shape my fate. Vyrek stepped forward, voice rising. Then step down. Let a commander with clarity of purpose take control before your weakness costs us everything. Althea looked toward the upper gallery where Kairos stood with silent supporters, young officers, scholars, and warriors who still believed in her. Not all of us see unity as weakness, Kairos said, voice cutting through the chaos. Some see it as strength. Delos turned toward Althea. Bring the human forward. Let him answer for himself. Let us see if he kneels. The chamber doors opened. And Nathan entered. Nathan's boots echoed across the polished floor of the High Council chamber. It was built like an amphitheater, sloped tiers filled with silent Zerati leaders, their wings folded tight, expressions unreadable. Golden light poured down from the high arches, casting long shadows behind him as he approached the center of the chamber, toward Althea, toward Vyrek, and toward the prophecy that now threatened everything. Elder Thelos gestured him forward. Human! You will answer now. Nathan met his gaze. Answer to what? To the corruption of our prophecy. To your entanglement with our commander. To the accusation that your presence has twisted the will of the skies. Nathan's jaw clenched. If your prophecy is so fragile that it can be corrupted by me, then maybe it was never real. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A few wings flared instinctively. Vyrek stepped forward, his voice venom. You insult our beliefs even now. You have no right to stand here. I was invited, Nathan replied. By your commander. She is no longer your commander. Vyrek snapped. Not after this betrayal. Althea finally spoke. Enough. The wind stirred at her feet, spinning dust into tiny spirals as her power flared, not as a threat, but as a demand for silence. You want to test the prophecy? She asked, looking around at the chamber. Then test it. She turned to Nathan, stepping into the open space between the watching officials and him. Do you submit? She asked quietly, voice carrying to the furthest arch. Nathan didn't hesitate. No. More murmurs. A pulse of unrest. Do you serve the Dominion? She asked. I serve Earth, Nathan replied. But I stand with you. Elder Thalos's staff struck the floor once. He refuses to kneel. Yet he stands beside the Windborn. The one who does not break beneath the wind, murmured Kairos from the gallery. A low current stirred the chamber. Invisible, but undeniable. The old scholar took a step forward, his voice now rising. The prophecy does not demand submission. It demands resistance. A union of the wind and the grounded. Of strength that does not come from conquest, but from defiance. You twist the words to protect her. Vyrek spat. And you twist them to replace her. Kairos fired back. But the wind chooses its own path. Althea turned, her wings spreading in full. I choose, she said. And I choose Nathan Rourke, not because of prophecy, but because of the peace he represents. Because I trust him more than I trust centuries of expectation. She stepped to Nathan's side, her wing brushing his shoulder. If this is treason, then let the winds judge me. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a voice from the gallery called. I stand with the commander. Another. Then another. The tide was turning. Vyrek's supporters hesitated, their once solid line wavering. Thelos looked between them all. So be it. Let the winds bear witness. As the chamber calmed, Nathan leaned toward Althea. Well, he said under his breath. That was subtle. Her golden eyes slid to him. I am the storm, Nathan. Subtlety is optional. They stood side by side as the room shifted, from judgment to acknowledgement. Nathan didn't return to his quarters. Not that night. Instead, he followed Althea through the quiet inner halls of the Zarati flagship, past guards who saluted with uncertain winks, past aides who bowed just a little deeper than before. The political ground beneath them had shifted, unstable, unpredictable, but it had shifted in their favor. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Are we safe? He asked quietly as the doors to the command wing slid shut behind them. No, Althea answered plainly. But we're necessary now. That protects us better than any guards. She wasn't wrong. The council hadn't officially endorsed them, but neither had it deposed her. The prophecy, ancient and malleable, was now a shield as much as a shackle. Nathan collapsed into a chair at the briefing table. So what happens now? We move forward, Althea replied. Finalize the treaty. Show strength and unity. Prove this alliance isn't prophecy, it's survival. Before Nathan could respond, a piercing alarm shattered the moment. The room lights dimmed to red. Emergency symbols flashed across the wall panels in sharp, urgent pulses. Althea was already moving. Unauthorized atmospheric breach, she muttered, reading the alert. A sudden blast rocked the floor beneath their feet. Nathan grabbed the side of the table. That wasn't atmospheric. No, Althea said grimly. That was a targeted strike. The door to the corridor blew inward. Wind screamed into the chamber, shaped into a blade of invisible force that sliced the table clean in two. Standing in the doorway, wings stretched wide and eyes blazing, was Vyrek. The prophecy dies with you, he snarled. He launched another air blade toward Nathan's chest. Nathan dove, rolling behind the console as the blade shattered steel where he'd been sitting seconds ago. Vyrek, don't! Althea shouted, already summoning pressure to counter the next attack. Stand down! He ignored her. Another gust screamed toward Nathan, who scrambled behind a pillar as it cracked under the force. You'll die here, Vyrek roared. And the Dominion will rise pure, untainted by human weakness. Althea flung out her hand. A wave of air surged forward, colliding with Vyrek's incoming strike. The two forces clashed in a violent burst that split the air with a thunderclap. Nathan spotted something on the floor, a long, curved ceremonial dagger that had been knocked free during the blast. Vyrek's. He lunged for it, even as Vyrek turned to launch another assault. Don't! Althea shouted. Too late. Nathan hurled the dagger. It spun through the air, embedding itself in Vyrek's secondary wing joint. The traitor cried out, staggering. Althea seized the opening. She moved with impossible speed, enclosing him in a compression field so dense the wind itself screamed in protest. Vyrek collapsed to one knee, gasping. His wings shuddered and folded inward. If you ever threaten what's mine again, Althea said coldly, I will scatter your bones across the void. Guards arrived seconds later, Kairos among them. They took Vyrek into custody, shackling him in reinforced bonds. The moment he was gone, the pressure in the room dropped like a stone. Althea sagged slightly, her wings folding. Nathan crossed to her, placing a hand on her arm. You're hurt. A scratch, she lied. He could already see silvery blood on her side. I'll take care of it. And this time, she didn't argue. Althea sat on the edge of the bench, breathing heavily, her injured wing trembling slightly as it extended. The gash along the membrane was shallow but long, glistening with strands of silvery blood that clung like mercury. Nathan knelt before her, opening a compartment in the wall, emergency med supplies neatly arranged in glowing rows. You've done this before, she said softly, watching his hands move with practiced efficiency. I was a field medic during the Titan conflicts, he replied. Before I moved into diplomacy. She smirked faintly. That explains your reflexes. And your stubbornness. He dabbed antiseptic over the wound, gently pressing the edge of a nanoweave patch to the torn membrane. Stubbornness is a human survival trait. Then you must be among the most evolved. He glanced up. You're joking. That's a first. Her golden eyes softened. Maybe I have more firsts to offer. Nathan finished sealing the wound, then paused, his hand still resting lightly on her arm. You almost died tonight. So did you. But you stepped between me and Vyrek, he said. You didn't hesitate. Althea tilted her head. Neither did you, when you threw that blade. He looked down at his hand, still streaked with her blood. This alliance, this thing between us, it's no longer hypothetical. They'll come for us again. They already have, she replied. And we're still standing. Nathan exhaled slowly. We don't have the luxury of doubt anymore. She rose, wings folding carefully. Then don't doubt me. Their eyes locked. Nathan stepped closer. Do you really believe this prophecy means peace? I don't know, she said. But I know I believe in you. There was no storm this time. No elemental swirl. No dramatic gust of wind. Just a quiet moment between two leaders whose paths had crossed in the heart of war, and changed each other forever. Her fingers brushed his. You saved me. He leaned forward, forehead against hers. You saved all of us. Then, slowly, their lips met, without desperation, without adrenaline, just a quiet promise exchanged beneath the quiet hum of the ship. Afterward, as they lay together in silence, her damaged wings stretched protectively over them, Nathan stared at the ceiling, his thoughts racing. "What happens now?" he whispered. She traced a line along his chest. "Now we win. Together." 3 days passed. Vyrek remained imprisoned deep within the flagship, guarded not only by Althea's loyalists, but also by 2 council delegates who had since grown quiet in their condemnation. Whatever momentum he'd had was broken. But the damage he'd done lingered, mistrust spread like cracks beneath the treaty's foundation. Despite it all, Althea pressed forward. She moved through the ship with the precision of a blade, commanding, unflinching, but now followed by cautious respect. Nathan noticed it. Fewer soldiers stared at him with suspicion. More nodded silently as he passed. Progress, however slow. But something was missing. Althea felt it too. She stood in the observation chamber late one cycle, her wings barely moving, gaze fixed on the distant blue and green curve of Earth far below. Nathan joined her, slipping through the quiet doorway. "Still looks like home," he murmured. She didn't take her eyes off the planet. "I want to see it." Nathan blinked. "Earth?" She nodded once. "Not from orbit. I want to walk where you were born. I want to see what we've been destroying." He hesitated. "You know how dangerous that could be. There are resistance cells. Survivors who'd shoot first and ask questions never." "I am aware," she said. "But I need to understand. And they need to see me, see us, not as conquerors, but something else." "Althea, you said peace was only possible if it's visible." She turned toward him. "Let's make it visible." Nathan swallowed. "We'll need an escort. Small transport. Safe landing zone. I trust you," she said simply. "Choose the place." 2 Earth days later, their shuttle broke atmosphere under the cloak of a carefully arranged ceasefire. Only Nathan, Althea, and Elder Kairos were aboard, with 1 Zerati pilot and a cloaking field humming around the hull. They landed on the outskirts of what had once been Chicago. The city was in ruins, half the skyline cracked like broken teeth, bridges severed, wind turbines rising from makeshift fields of solar mesh. But signs of life had returned. Smoke rose from temporary homes. Children played beneath the shattered husks of old skyscrapers. And beneath it all, the grid of Earth pulsed strong. Althea stepped out first, her hooded cloak fluttering in the wind. Her wings were hidden beneath dense fabric, her horns covered by a shaped veil. But no amount of disguise could fully erase the quiet command in her posture. Nathan led her toward a ridge. At the top, the city unfolded beneath them, scarred, gasping, alive. She inhaled deeply. "Your atmosphere, it sings." "What do you hear?" he asked. "Hope," she said. "And fear." They spent the day walking through recovering neighborhoods. Nathan had arranged safe passage, but suspicions still followed them. Yet Althea's presence, silent, curious, unarmed, softened some of the gazes. She helped lift a fallen solar panel. Listened to a boy describe the drone he'd rebuilt from alien wreckage. Watched an elderly woman mend clothing in silence, and gave her the kind of respectful bow that stunned nearby survivors. That night, they stood beside Lake Michigan, the water reflecting the fractured stars above. "Do you think your people will ever truly accept mine?" she asked. Nathan was quiet a long moment. "Maybe not all of them. Maybe not quickly. But they'll remember this day." She turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. "Then let's give them more to remember." The stars glittered over Lake Michigan, their reflections broken by soft ripples as Nathan and Althea stood close, quiet. The shoreline had changed, much like Earth itself. Where once there had been bright lights and laughter, now there was the steady rhythm of rebuilding. People worked in silence, side by side, with less talk of revenge and more focus on survival. Althea took a slow breath of the Earth air. "Your world is persistent. We don't know how to quit," Nathan said. "We don't always get it right, but we always get back up." She looked out over the water. That's what makes you dangerous. Not your weapons. Your will. He turned to her, smiling faintly. Is that admiration or a warning? Both. She reached for his hand. He laced his fingers through hers, unspoken connection holding firmer than any treaty signed on paper. They stayed like that for a while, until the wind shifted. Not naturally. Artificial. A sharp breeze carried something unfamiliar, an atmospheric fluctuation distinct to Althea's senses. Her eyes narrowed. Kairos's communicator buzzed. The old elder answered quickly, listening for only a moment before his eyes widened. We're being recalled. Emergency session. Althea turned to him instantly. What happened? The High Council has been summoned in full, Kairos replied. Elder Delos has called a vote. He's declaring the prophecy null and void. He's using your relationship with the human as proof of contamination. Nathan straightened. He's trying to erase the prophecy? No, Althea said, voice hard. He's trying to erase me. They returned to the shuttle at once. The trip back to orbit was fast, tense, and silent. As Earth shrank beneath them, Nathan stared at the blue curve of home and felt something clench in his chest. He wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for her, for the power she'd earned, now hanging by threads of tradition and envy. When they docked with the flagship, the atmosphere had already changed. Gone was the deference from passing soldiers. Gone was the silence of all. Now there were whispers. Stares. Muted contempt from those who once stood neutral. The prophecy had shielded her. But now, it was being weaponized against her. As they moved toward the council chamber, Kairos stepped between them. They're demanding your presence, he told Althea. But they've made it clear, Nathan is not welcome. He's part of this now, Althea replied, jaw clenched. Kairos hesitated. Then you must prepare. Because if you walk in there with him at your side, they may see it as open defiance. I've walked storms sharper than the council, she said. She turned to Nathan, lowering her voice. If I leave you behind, they will see it as weakness. If I bring you, it could spark a full collapse. Nathan studied her. Then let's not give them a choice. Let's make a declaration. Her golden eyes searched his, weighing risk against trust. You're certain? He nodded. They want us divided. Let's show them what unity looks like. Althea reached for his hand once more. And together they stepped into the chamber, not as commander and diplomat, not as soldier and symbol, but as one. The High Council chamber was colder than before, lit not with golden brilliance, but sterile blue light. The air was too still, too rehearsed. Every counselor sat stiff-backed upon elevated thrones, their wings folded tightly, their eyes unreadable. They watched Althea and Nathan enter together, hand in hand, like witnesses waiting to condemn rather than deliberate. Elder Delos rose first. He had exchanged his ceremonial robes for the full regalia of the prophecy keeper, his staff crowned with a crystal that pulsed faintly in sync with the ship's core. His voice, when it came, echoed with institutional weight. Commander Althea, he began. You were summoned alone. I do not come alone, she answered clearly. I come with the one the winds brought to me. Gasps flared through the chamber. Wings twitched. Thalas's eyes narrowed. And by doing so, you confirm our fears. That your emotions now override your duties. That the prophecy has poisoned your judgment. Kairos stepped forward from the gallery above. You invoke the prophecy only when it suits your power. When it served you, Althea was the Windborn. When it challenged your authority, you call it heresy. Enough, Delos barked. But Althea held up her hand. Let them speak. Let them accuse. But I will answer. She turned to face the assembled leaders. You all fear what we are building. Not because it is weak, but because it changes everything you know. A union between wind and resistance. Between the storms of our people and the foundation of theirs. That's what the prophecy says. And I've lived long enough to see that change is the one force more powerful than tradition. You dare recite the winds back to us? Delos thundered. I am the wind, she said. And I will not be bent by old men clutching old fears. Nathan stepped forward. You want proof that I've corrupted her? That she's compromised? You're looking at this the wrong way. He pointed toward Althea. She spared Earth when she didn't have to. She chose diplomacy when she could have ended us. She changed because she saw something better. That's not corruption. That's evolution. Several counselors looked between them, uneasy. One leaned toward another and whispered. Kairos saw it. He stepped forward. I invoke the right of ancient clarification. The Los froze. You wouldn't. I do, Kairos said calmly. Let the prophecy be fulfilled. Or disproven. Here. Now. Delos hesitated, his fingers tightening around the staff. And how do you propose we do that? Nathan looked to Althea. She nodded. Then she turned back toward the gathered council. We complete the rite. Publicly. As written. Silence fell across the chamber. The rite of wind and will has not been performed in 2 centuries, a council whispered. Then it's long overdue, Althea said. Prepare the chamber of currents. And let every eye in the Dominion see what choice, true choice, looks like. The vote to proceed was not unanimous. But it passed. As Althea and Nathan turned to leave, hand still in hand, Thalos' voice rang out behind them. If the prophecy fails, if he breaks beneath your power, then your claim will vanish. You will be exiled. And Earth will burn. Nathan looked back at him, eyes like iron. Then I won't break. Althea didn't look back at all. The Chamber of Currents had not been used in generations. It was built into the highest spire of the Zerati flagship, a sanctum surrounded on all sides by translucent wind glass that shimmered with every pulse of atmospheric manipulation. Lightning danced across its ceiling, a soft hum of contained power ever present, like the breath of the storm itself. This was where the rite of wind and will would unfold. The chamber wasn't just ceremonial, it was elemental. Once activated, it would generate a storm inside its walls, controlled only by the will of the Windborn. And those who stood against her. Many had failed. Some had died. All had been changed. Nathan stood at the center, breath steady, eyes calm. Althea entered slowly, cloaked in traditional armor woven from currents and light. Her wings were uncovered, fully extended, every feather alive with power. Her eyes glowed like twin suns. She wasn't a commander now. She was the storm itself. Elder Kairos and several counselors stood beyond the circle, acting as witnesses. The entire chamber was being broadcast to the Dominion, to every ship, every stronghold. Billions would see what happened next. Thalos' voice echoed over the chamber. The rite begins. The Windborn will summon her full might. The Chosen will stand. If he yields, she fails. Althea's gaze never left Nathan. Are you ready? He nodded once. Always. She raised her arms. The winds came alive. Air spun around them, growing in speed, pressure, intensity. The chamber darkened as stormlights surged through the walls. Her wings flared wider, and the currents tightened into bands, slamming against Nathan's chest, legs, arms, testing every nerve, every bone. He gritted his teeth, muscles locked. The force tried to lift him, bend him, force him to his knees. Sweat broke across his brow. His ribs ached from the strain. But he stayed standing. Althea advanced a step, and the wind howled louder. The pressure doubled. Invisible hands crushed down on him from every angle, winds hissing in his ears, roaring past his limbs like blades. His feet shifted, but didn't fall. His breath came ragged. But he did not kneel. Althea's expression changed. She stepped forward again. A final burst of power crashed into Nathan, a wall of raw atmospheric fury, her full strength, unleashed. Nathan roared against it. And held. The storm stopped. Silence followed, so total it rang in their ears. Althea's wings folded slowly, her glow dimming. She approached him, one step at a time. Her hand touched his face, and in front of the entire Dominion she said, He did not bend. Then, she turned to the Council, to the cameras, to the galaxy. The rite is fulfilled. The Windborn rises. And with me stands the one who does not break. A pulse of air lifted around them, not as weapon, but as celebration. A ritual complete. A bond forged not in prophecy alone, but in choice. The Los said nothing. The chamber erupted into voices, shocked, uncertain, some reverent. But the people had seen. And they believed. Nathan looked at Althea, breathing hard. We did it! She smiled, exhaustion and pride softening her normally sharp features. No, she whispered. We're just beginning. The celebration didn't last. Within hours of the rite's conclusion, the High Council was split. Supporters of Althea hailed her as the true Windborn, the first to complete the ancient rite in generations, the embodiment of prophecy fulfilled through strength and balance. But her opponents, Virek's allies, the purists, the fearful, claimed manipulation. They called the rite a stunt, a distraction, a false ascension forged by a human infection. Tension crackled throughout the fleet. Nathan felt it in every hallway he passed through. The way Zerati officers straightened at his approach. Some bowed. Others turned away. He didn't need Althea to explain it, they were being watched. Admired. Resented. Althea convened a private war council with Kairos and her closest captains. Nathan stood quietly at her side as holograms hovered above the table, each one flickering with real-time data from within the Dominion. Messages of support. Protests. Strategic redeployments. Factions shifting their loyalties. We have 6 systems in open declaration, Kairos said. They accept the Windborn. Earth's treaty stands. And the rest? Althea asked. Kairos hesitated. 3 fleets are refusing orders. 1 has gone dark entirely. And, he looked at her gravely, a weapons platform near the Malin Gate has activated. She stiffened. That station was mothballed. Not anymore. Nathan stepped forward. Who controls it? Kairos adjusted the display. A red icon pulsed above the gate's coordinates. Councillor Relan, one of Thalos' oldest allies. He's not answering diplomatic calls. Althea's voice turned to steel. They mean to strike. To undo the rite. To break the momentum before it hardens into peace. Kairos nodded slowly. And they'll do it soon. Nathan studied the holograms. They'll target Earth. The room fell still. It's symbolic, he continued. Strike Earth, sever the bond between us, discredit the Union. You lose your claim to the prophecy. Althea stared at the display, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Then we intercept them. Immediately. Kairos tapped controls. The Malin Gate is 6 hours from Earth at maximum warp. We can reach it in 4, if we override safety limits. Althea didn't hesitate. Do it. As the captains dispersed, Althea pulled Nathan aside. This is what they've waited for, she said. A reason to say the Union made me weak. Then prove them wrong, he said. She looked at him. Not as the Windborn Empress, but as the woman who had chosen a path few believed possible. I need you at my side, she whispered. I never left. They stood together as the ship shuddered, its engines pushing beyond standard limits. The flagship hurtled toward a confrontation that could either end the war or destroy the fragile peace they'd bled to build. The Zerati flagship tore through subspace at unsafe velocity, its hull groaning with each passing moment. Energy rippled along the walls of the war bridge, where Althea stood at the helm, flanked by Kairos and Nathan. Her wings were half extended, poised, not with aggression, but resolve. A fleet hovered near the Malin Gate. 3 dreadnoughts. 24 escorts. All marked with the crimson insignias of Relan's rebellion. They're charging primary weapons, a lieutenant called out. Target, Earth's upper orbit. Althea narrowed her eyes. Open wideband transmission. All channels. A moment later, her voice echoed not just across the ship, but through the fleet, through the gate, and across Dominion space. This is Commander Althea, Windborn of the Zerati people. Stand down. No reply. Then a new voice crackled in, deep, grim, laced with contempt. Counselor Relan. You're no Windborn. You're a traitor with a pet human. The prophecy was corrupted the moment you let him touch you. Nathan stepped into view beside her. I didn't come here for prophecy. I came for peace. But I'll fight for it too, if I have to. You don't belong here. Relan snapped. And you've polluted her. She made her choice, Nathan said. Now you make yours. Althea raised her hand, wings fully expanding. If you fire on Earth, you start a war you cannot win. Silence. Then, one of the rebel ships turned. Another followed. Only Relan's flagship held course. They're backing off, Kairos said. But the final dreadnought surged forward. Althea clenched her fist. Prepare to intercept. Divert auxiliary power to compression fields. No, Nathan said suddenly. She turned to him. He was already moving toward the tactical console. Let me speak to Earth. Seconds later, Earth's defense station flickered to life. General Porter's hardened face filled the screen. Commander Rourke, he said. You're alive. I need you to stand down, Nathan said. They're not all our enemies. Some of them are, the general replied. One, Nathan corrected. One ship. One man clinging to fear. Let us deal with him. Porter studied him. Then nodded once. You have 5 minutes. After that I fire. Relan's ship opened fire first. Twin beams of raw kinetic force ripping toward Earth. But Althea was ready. She flung out both arms, wings blazing. A massive compression wave burst from the flagship, colliding with the beams and dispersing them into harmless mist. Then she returned fire. Not a kill shot, but a precision strike. Relan's engines failed. The ship began to drift. And the war ended in silence. Relan's ship hung dead in space, lights flickering, weapons silenced. Earth's orbital defenses powered down. The fleets that had shadowed the confrontation, Zerati loyalists, human support craft, neutral observers, watched in stunned quiet. Nathan stood beside Althea as she issued the final order. Detain Counselor Relan and his crew. No executions. No martyrdoms. Let history judge them. Kairos bowed his head slightly. The galaxy just witnessed you protect both your enemy and your future. I protected the wind, Althea replied softly. It cannot be chained by hatred. Within hours, the formal surrender of the rebel fleet was transmitted and signed. The prophecy, no longer a weapon, no longer a chain, became a symbol of union. 3 days later, in a grand chamber aboard the flagship, representatives from Earth and the Zerati Dominion stood together to sign the Treaty of Currents. Althea, no longer merely a commander, but now recognized as Empress Windborn, presented the final document. Nathan Rourke signed beside her. In front of billions across the galaxy, she turned to him and said, Let this be our legacy, not one of conquest, but of change. He took her hand. And let it begin with us. Cheers echoed. The winds shifted. Months passed. Earth rebuilt faster than any had expected, its cities rising with Zerati assistance, its people adapting to alien technology, its skies once again clear. For the first time in generations, war no longer loomed above. Nathan chose not to return to Earth permanently. Instead, he remained at Althea's side, her advisor, her anchor, her equal. They traveled together, one human, one Zerati, visiting worlds once scarred by fear, now warmed by peace. Wherever they went, people whispered of the prophecy fulfilled, and the choice that had rewritten destiny. One night, as they walked through the quiet gardens aboard the flagship, gardens he had helped plant, Nathan looked at her beneath the stars. Do you ever miss the storm? Althea smiled, her wings folding gently around them. No, she said. Because I found something stronger than the wind. He leaned into her. And what's that? Her voice was soft as air, steady as earth. Hope. And together they stepped forward, into a future neither prophecy nor war had the power to define.